The sky turned red that night, and no one knew why Lena stood outside her home and looked up as something strange moved across the clouds. It was big and dark, and it made no sound, but it blocked the stars above her. The air felt heavy and cold, like something bad was about to happen. People in the street were pointing and whispering, and someone dropped a bag of food without noticing. Lena turned to call her mother, but there was no answer. She walked back inside, but the lights were flickering. And her little brother was not in his room. She called again, louder, now her voice shaking, still no answer. She ran outside again, and then she heard a loud, deep hum filled the air and everything. Started shaking, her neighbors were screaming, and running one man shouted to get down, but it was already too late. A bright beam came from the sky and hit the building across the street. It did not explode, it simply disappeared. Nothing was left, not even Dustlina froze in place, her eyes wide, her breath stuck in her throat. Another beam came down, this time in her backyard. She screamed and ran toward it. That was where her mother had gone just minutes ago. The grass was burned black, and something huge stood in the center. It looked like a ship with long legs and sharp arms. It opened up, and strange figures came out. They were tall and thin, with long arms and no faces. Their skin looked like metal, and light came from their heads. They moved without sound. One of them grabbed her neighbor and lifted him like he weighed nothing. The man screamed, but the creature did not care. It walked back into the ship and vanished with him. Lena ran to the garden, but no one was there, only the soft toy of her brother, lying in the dirt. She picked it up with shaking hands. Then she heard her mother's voice. It was weak and far away. She followed the sound. It led her to the woods behind the house. There she saw them, three of the creatures carrying a cage. Inside the cage were people. She saw her mother. She saw her brother. She cried out and ran toward them. One of the creatures turned and raised its arm. A wave of blue light hit her, and she fell. She could not move her legs. She could only watch as the ship above opened again. The cage was lifted up. Her family was taken. The ship rose into the sky. The red clouds swallowed it. Then everything was quiet again. 2 quiet hours passed, but Lena did not feel time. Her legs slowly came back. She crawled to her house, which was half burned. Her hands were bloody. Her face was covered in dirt. She sat on the ground, holding the soft toy close to her chest. She did not cry. She could not. Her eyes were dry and full of fire. The next morning, soldiers came. Ships flew over the town. They asked questions, but no one had answers. Lena told them what she saw. They looked at her like she was crazy. They said there were no signs of alien ships, no strange creatures, no missing people, but she knew what she saw. She showed them the burned marks on the ground. She showed them the toy. She told them the names of the missing. They wrote things down, but did not listen. One soldier stayed behind. He gave her food and water. Then he gave her something else, a small metal piece that fell from the ship. He whispered, "You're not alone." That night, she sat in the ruins of her room. She looked at the stars. Somewhere up there, her family was trapped, taken hurt. She made a promise. Would find them, she would bring them back, no matter what, and if the creatures came again, they would regret it, because now they had made a mistake. They took the wrong girl's family, and she was going to hunt them down. Asterisk. The rain fell hard on the city of lights and glass and metal. Lena wore a long coat now, the hood hiding her face as she walked fast through the crowd. She was not just a girl anymore. She was a ghost, a shadow, someone the soldiers no longer searched for, but still watched from a distance. 3 weeks had passed since her family was taken. She had tried everything, asked questions, chased stories, even sneaked into government stations, but all doors stayed shut until tonight. She had followed a strange man through the alleys. He wore black and moved like he had no weight. He never looked back, but he led her to something she needed, a door beneath the ground, a hidden place. He opened it with a key that blinked red. Then he was gone. Inside the room were boxes, screens, old files, covered in dust. The walls had words she could not read. But one symbol repeated again and again, the same black mark that had been left on her wall. To the mark the alien ship burned. She looked around and found an old terminal. It flickered with weak light. She typed her family's names. Nothing, she typed. Her name, still nothing. Then she typed one word, harvest. The screen changed. It opened files locked for years. Project Harvest Operation Silence. Collector Trade. The words burned into her mind. Each one felt like fire. She read about secret deals, alien. Races that used humans for work for testing for worse. The governments had known for years Earth was not alone, but Earth was not strong, so. They made a deal. They gave people in exchange for peace. Lena stepped back, her breath heavy, her heart shaking. This was the truth, the real truth. Her family was not just taken. They were sold. Suddenly the lights went red, alarms screamed. Metal doors slammed shut. Someone had seen her. Someone had triggered the alert. She grabbed a file and ran the hallway twisted. Like a maze, voices echoed behind her, orders, footsteps. She turned a corner and nearly ran into a soldier. But this one looked different. He had no gun, just eyes full of warning. He grabbed her arm and pulled her through another door. They slid down. A pipe through water, through fire, through darkness, until they reached an old hangar. Ship stood ready, small, fast. Hidden, you saw too much. He said, now they'll come for you too. Not just the government, the ones above. He gave her a key. He gave her a name, a planet lost on old maps. He told her to run. She did not say thank you. She only asked one question, were they alive? He looked at her, then nodded yes. But not for long. The engines lit up. The ship rose, the roof opened. She flew into the night. Sky stars filled her eyes, and fire filled her chest. She was leaving Earth not to run, but to chase, to hunt, to find what was stolen. But even as she flew, screens blinked across planets, across stations, across dark halls where alien voices spoke in. Silence, her name, appeared a human girl, unauthorized, dangerous target to be captured or destroyed. She was now marked, hunted, not just by soldiers, but by things much worse and far above. In a place no one on Earth had seen, a voice without a face spoke. In a cold tone, she knows, find her, bring her back, or burn everything she touches, asterisk. The fire was not red, it was green. The ground shook, like it was breathing. Lena dropped to one knee as the blast swept over her. Dust and ash filled her lungs, but she kept moving. The village behind her was gone, nothing left, not even the sound of screams. She had followed the signal here, a small world far beyond the main maps. It was supposed to be empty, but it was not. It had people, homes, children, and now it had silence. The sky cracked as 3 black ships rose, like shadows. No symbols, no windows. No sound. She watched from behind a broken tree, her fists clenched. She saw the same type of cage they used on her family. This was their pattern land without warning. Take what they want, destroy the rest. She waited until the ships were gone. Then she moved through the ruins. Her boots touched bones. Glass melted metal. She did not cry. She just kept walking. A voice called out from under a crushed wall. Help me, please. She ran to it and lifted the pieces one by one. Beneath the rubble was a boy. No. Older than 10, his face was burned, but his eyes were strong. He did not scream. He just looked at her and asked, are they coming back? She told him no. But they would unless someone stopped them. The boy pointed to a building half standing. He said they came for something inside a metal box with blinking blue lights. She went inside. The walls were burned, but the machines were still warm. In the center of the room was a black cube. She touched it, and it opened like it was waiting. Inside was a map knot. Just stars, but targets, marked worlds, red marks for taken planets. Green marks for next in line. Earth was already red. The next was a place called Shira. She did not know where it was. But someone might. She took the cube and carried the boy to her ship. His name was Nix. His family was gone, but he still had fight in his voice. He asked if she was a soldier. She said no. Just someone they took too much from. He stayed quiet for a while, then he said he wanted to help. She gave him a place to rest. Then she stared at the map for hours. So many worlds, so many lives gone. She remembered the message she saw back on Earth, Project Harvest Collector. Trade human cargo. She knew now it was more than humans they took from any race that could not stop them. They moved like ghosts, struck like storms, and left fire behind. But now she had a path. She flew toward the green mark, toward Shira, a desert moon with no name on the trade maps. But someone had written it down, and that meant someone had survived her. Ship broke through the clouds of Shira winds. Howled sand danced like knives in the sky. She landed near a broken tower. Smoke rose from the top. That meant life. She and Nix walked together. The boy stayed close. He held a stick like it was a weapon. She did not stop him. At the tower's base, they found them. Not soldiers, not fighters, just people, scared, tired, hiding. An old woman stepped forward. Her face was covered in cloth, but her eyes held fire. She looked at Lena. You came from the stars, did. They send you. Lena shook her head. I came for truth. The woman nodded and opened a metal door in the floor. Below was a room filled with screens. Maps, records, all tracking the ships. We watched them, she said, but we cannot stop them. Then let me try, Lena. Said the woman, showed her one thing, a message sent by accident from one of the collector ships. It showed cages, hundreds of them, all moving toward a single place. A central world, a hive. If you want to hurt them, the woman said, start there. Lena stared. At the screen, her family could be on one of those ships. Maybe already there. She could not wait. She looked at Nix. He nodded. They were not soldiers. But they would fight as the night fell over Shira. A small ship rose from the desert, chasing smoke, chasing shadows and carrying a girl with fire in her blood. They took her world. They burned others. But now she was burning back. Asterisk. Her face was everywhere. On screens inside ships, on walls of dark stations, on bounty lists, marked with flashing red lights, wanted. Alive, if possible dead, if needed reward paid in units our leaves. Her own face glowed from a rusted screen as she walked through the smoke-filled hall of the market. Her hood was up, her steps quiet, her breath slow. Nick stayed behind her, holding a bag of food, pretending to be a poor trader boy. They had done this on 4 planets now, steal what they needed. Run before anyone looked too close, but today something felt wrong. The air was thicker than usual, eyes followed her, longer. Whisper floated in the crowd. She is here, she. Grabbed Nix's hand and turned down a side path. Too late a man stepped out of the shadows. He was tall with armor that looked burned and patched. His arms were metal. His eyes were not human. He smiled. Like a hunter who had waited too long. They say your trouble, he said. Let us find out if they are right. Lena pushed Nix behind her and drew her blade. The man laughed and threw something. It exploded with light and noise. She jumped sideways, pulling. Nix with her. The crowd screamed and scattered chaos gave her seconds. She ran through the tunnels, down the stairwells, past old machines and pipes and dripping wires. The bounty hunter chased them without rushing. He knew the paths. He was not alone. Another. One blocked the way ahead. This one smaller but faster, twin knives and hand eyes, like mirrors. Lena stopped. Nix hid behind a crate. She looked at the hunter in front of her, then at the one behind trapped. She waited, listened. The hunters moved closer. 3 steps, 2 steps, 1. She dropped to the floor and kicked a pipe. Steam exploded into the air. Screams filled the tunnel. She rolled forward and knocked the smaller hunter to the ground. Grabbed Nix and ran again. Her heart was under her legs. Burned, but she did not stop. They reached the roof of an old building. No way forward. Only sky. The hunters followed. Cornered again, Lena turned and held the blade ready if this was the end. She would make it cost them, but the air above roared engines. Blasted wind across the rooftop. A small ship hovered close. The door opened, jump. Someone shouted. Lena pushed Nix forward. He leapt and landed inside. She ran and jumped as the hunters reached the edge. The ship rose. The hunters fired metal, slammed against the side. But they missed Lena, crawled inside, and looked up at the pilot. She was not human skin blue, like frozen light eyes, sharp and silver. Clothes marked with rebel colors. You look like trouble, the alien woman said. That means we have something in. Common. Lena stayed quiet, catching her breath. Nick stared in awe. A woman gave her name Kira. Leader of a small rebel crew hiding between the stars. She had seen the bounty on Lena, but she had also seen the files. Lena sent out before the signal was. Blocked files about the collectors, about Earth, about harvest. No one wanted to believe, but Kira did. She took them to a hidden place. A broken moon with tunnels like veins inside lived a few hundred fighters. Not soldiers, just survivors from worlds. The collectors had burned. Lena showed them the black cube, the map, the files, the message from Shira, the cages. They listened. Some cried. Some clenched their fists. One of them spoke. We cannot fight ships that vanish. We cannot chase. But Lena stood. You can, she said, because I will lead. Silence filled the room. Then Kira laughed. A brave voice in a small body. I like it. She said, they made a plan, a risky one. A trap. If they could catch just one collector ship, they could break it open. Find out where the captives go. Find out where the hive truly hides. Lena offered herself as bait. Kira refused. Then agreed. The message was sent through old pirate channels. The ghost girl spotted on a trade ship near the broken edge of Sector 12. No defense. No help, just so the bait was set. Now they waited far across the stars, inside a cold chamber lit by blue fire. The collectors received a signal. One of the faceless commanders turned toward a screen target, found. Send the hunters. The sky above the dead moon was black without stars. No wind, no sound, only silence like something was holding its breath. Lena stood alone outside the broken ship, her hands cold, her eyes fixed on the horizon. She was the bait, and they were coming. Remembered what Kira said before they left. They always send scouts first, never show fear, make them chase you. Now she waited in the dust. Dust that covered old bones, shattered metal, and the rust of forgotten wars next, watched from the hidden ship. Far behind, Kira stood beside him, ready to strike if the signal came. But the plan was dangerous. Too dangerous, and Lena was alone. The sky cracked, a dark shape dropped from the clouds. Long, silent, sharp, like a knife cutting through the stars, a collector. Scout ship it hovered above her. No engines, no light, only shadow then. It opened, figures stepped out with long limbs and heads that pulsed with pale light. They moved like they were floating, no faces, no voices. Just deathliness to still her fingers. Holding the small tracker behind her back, one wrong move they would not ask. They would not warn. One stepped forward, its arms stretched toward her. She felt her breath leaving her body, felt her legs wanting to run, but she stayed the moment the hand touched her shoulder. She pressed the tracker in the sky. The clouded. S-ship dropped like a hammer, guns blazing, smoke blasting, missiles screaming. The collectors turned, but too late. Fire rained down them. One was torn apart, another tried to fly, but its wing was ripped off. Lena jumped back as Kira's crew landed beside her, 6 fighters with strange weapons, shouting, firing, moving fast. The ship above twisted to run, but Kira had planned for this. A second ship uncloaked behind. It fired a pulse into its engines. The scout fell, crashing into the rocks. Flew from its belly. They had it. Lena and Kira ran toward the wreck. Smoke rose, like blackwater heat burned the ground, but they kept going inside the ship. It was dark. Wires hanging like vines, fluids dripping from broken walls. The collectors inside were trying to erase the memory core. Kira fired once, twice. No more resistance. Lena found the core, still blinking, still alive. She grabbed it and ran as the fires grew. Outside, the fighters cheered. The trap had worked, but the real battle was just beginning back on the rebel moon. The core was placed in the center of the room. Experts worked on it, hacking, translating, breaking it open like a locked box. Lena watched. The screen images flashed cages, rooms full of prisoners, humans, aliens, children, then a location, not a name, just coordinates, deep in uncharted space. A place no one ever returned from, a place called the Nest. The heart of the collector's silence filled the chamber. Then someone whispered, "That is where they all are." Lena stepped forward, her hand shaking. "That is where my family is." Kira nodded. "Then we go." But others were afraid. The nest was surrounded by storms, mines, gravity traps, and worse things that could not be seen on scanners. It was suicide. It was madness, but Lena did not care. She had come this far. She would go further even if no one followed. Kira stood beside her. So did Nyx. Then one by one others joined. A plan was made. They would enter the ghost corridor, a narrow path of broken space where no collector ship could fly. It would be dangerous, but it would get them close. They had one chance, one shot. Lena sat alone that night, looking at the stars, holding the old toy her brother once dropped. She whispered to the sky, "I'm coming far," across the void inside the nest. Something ancient stirred, eyes opened in the dark. Voices moved like wind through metal halls. "She's coming," one voice said. "The girl who escaped. The girl who burned send." The guard protect the queen asterisk. The sky above the nest was alive with storms. Red lightning split the dark clouds like veins. The wind howled without breath. And space itself bent around the twisted black moon. Lena gripped the controls of the stolen scout. Ship, her knuckles white, her heart pounding louder than the engines beside her. Nyx stared ahead, eyes wide, but not afraid behind them. Kira's crew moved in silence, every hand ready, every weapon charged. No one spoke. Ahead lay the hive fortress, hidden in chaos, a place no one had ever reached and returned. But that was where her family was, and she would not leave without them. Ship trembled as it passed through. The first wave of distortion alarms blinked. The lights flickered. Kira shouted. From the rear, "Stay on course." Lena pushed forward. The stars vanished. Only the nest remained, a massive shape, covered in armor and smoke. Like a mountain made of metal and nightmares, the ship crashed down. Hard sparks flew, panels cracked, but they were alive. They stepped out onto the surface of the nest, black ground beneath their boots. The air thick with heat. The sound of machines breathing beneath the ground. Lena led the way, holding the tracker she built from the core. It pulsed with green light. Her mother was close. So was her brother. They moved through tunnels shaped like ribs, wires hung like vines. Red lights blinked like eyes in the dark, then the sound came a low hum. Rising, growing, filling every tunnel, every wall. Lena froze the others. Raised their weapons from the shadows came the host. They were not like the scouts. They were taller, faster, their bodies grown from flesh and metal. Their eyes pure white, and they did not walk. They glided. Kira fired first. The battle lit the tunnel. In fire screams, sparks, steel, and blood, Lena fought with a blade made from collector bone. It burned with every strike. She moved like fire. Each step closer to the signal, they broke through the wall into a large chamber. It was cold, too cold like all. Heat had been taken away, and the center hung cages, hundreds, some empty, some filled. She saw her brother first, his small face pressed against the bars. His eyes opened. He whispered her name. Lena ran to him, cut the lock, held him tight. He was real. He was alive. Her mother was nearby, weak, but breathing, still fighting. They opened more cages, freed more prisoners. The room filled with life and tears and shaking hands, but the hive was not done. Ground shook, the lights turned blue, and a voice echoed. Through the chamber, so you found your way here, little flame. Lena turned the wall open like a mouth, and from the dark came the queen. She was not like the others. She was massive, her body covered in silver plates, her face hidden behind glass, but her voice filled every mind. You could have stayed on your world. You could have forgotten, but you came. Lena stood tall. I came to end this. The queen moved closer, her body floating above the ground. She raised one hand. The prisoners screamed their cages. Pulled back, lifted, held in the air. I will not lose what I have built. I will erase your name from the stars. Lena reached into her pack, pulled out the core bomb made from the same code as the collector systems built to burn from the inside. She held it tight, looked at her mother, looked at her brother, then faced the queen. You took everything, now I take it back. She threw the core bomb into the air. The chamber flashed white systems, shut down. The cages dropped gently. The floor split open. Kira's voice came through the comm. Now Lena, no, they grabbed the freed prisoners, rushed to the tunnels. Fighting through fire and broken machines, the hive screamed. Walls, cracked beams fell. The queen rose from the flames, her body breaking apart, but her voice still echoed. This is not the end. Lena looked back once, her eyes full of fury. It is for you. They reached the extraction point. Kira's ship waiting, engines hot, wings open. One by one they climbed in. Lena carried her brother. Kira helped her mother, Nyx. Pulled two children out of the fire. The ship rose. The hive collapsed behind them, flames reaching into the sky. Above the nest, in the cold black of space. Lena watched it burn. She said nothing, only held her brother close. She had come to the heart of the enemy, and she had walked out alive, but something inside her knew it was not over yet. The stars watched in silence as the fire died. Smoke still curled from the broken world below. The hive was gone. The nest reduced to burning steel and falling light. But Lena did not smile. She stood at the window of the ship, holding her brother. Close, he was safe. Her mother was safe, but her heart was not. Others were quiet. Kira stood beside the pilot, staring into the fading glow of the collector stronghold. Nick sat near the wall, bandaging his arm with one hand and drawing stars with the other. They had escaped. They had won, but deep in the ship's belly, something pulsed faint and slow, a signal they could not block. The queen had survived, not her body, not her voice, but something deeper. Her mind had moved, her code had lived. Lena could feel it like a whisper behind her eyes, like a shadow beneath her thoughts. She closed her eyes, saw the cages, again the broken children, the silent ones, the ones they could not save even in victory. She carried the weight. The ship landed on free world, one not marked by war. The people there greeted them with open arms and quiet tears. They had heard the signal, seen the fall, and for the first time in years, they had hope. Lena walked through the crowd, not as a stranger, not as a child, but as the one who came back from the fire. She had no speech, no crown, no armor, only scars and eyes that had seen too much. Still, they followed her. Still, they listened. Kira stood before the crowd and raised one fist. This girl burned the hive. This girl broke the chain. This girl is the reason we still breathe. The crowd roared like a storm, but Lena said nothing. She only looked at her family. Her mother standing tall again. Her brother smiling without fear. That was all she needed. They gave her A room at the top of the tallest tower, she sat alone at night, staring at the stars, waiting, listening. She knew it was not over. The queen would rebuild. Somewhere the dark pieces would gather, voices would rise, but now the galaxy had seen what one human could do. Now the hunted had become the hunter across other worlds. The story spread. The girl who walked into the nest and returned. The girl who broke the unbreakable resistance was no longer a whisper. It was a flame ships began to move, old allies returned, forgotten warriors rose again. Each one lighting a fire the queen could never control. And at the center of it all was Lena. She trained every day. She studied the technology she had stolen. She spoke with leaders, with fighters, with survivors. She told them the truth, not just about the hive, but about what comes after fear. The choice to rise next stayed close to her side. He called her captain now. Her mother taught the new children, helped them sleep without fear. Kira led missions to free the last cages. Each one a piece of the chain breaking loose. Then one day the signal came weak, broken, but relay, voice from deep space, crying for help, trapped. Cage Lena stood in the war room, eyes sharp, heart steady, where a map lit up. A place she had never seen, a place not marked on any chart. She looked at Kira, ready always. The engines roared. The lights dimmed, and the ship rose into the sky once more. Lena stood at the front, one hand on the glass, one hand on the hilt of her blade. She had lost everything once, but now she had purpose. Now she had a galaxy behind her. Now she had fire in her blood and steel in her soul. She was not just the girl who escaped. She not just the one who fought. She was the spark, the storm, the one they should have never touched. She was coming, and nothing would stop her again.